Melissa Landsman, good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
You proposed a bill.
I proposed a motion to get back to normal. We've seen the horror stories. We've seen the extreme delays, the lineups, the bottlenecks, the misconnections, the people sleeping on the airport floors because of unnecessary protocols. Everybody has said it. The airlines have said it. The airports have said it. Experts have said it. The only people who haven't said it is the government.
All right. Well, the one excuse we've heard is not enough staff, that it's not the restrictions, it's a shortage of staff.
Well, of course, there's a shortage of staff. We still have mandates in place, and according to lots of sources, there's about 300 or 400 people who can't come back to work because they've been mandated to get a vaccine. Now, every other country has moved on, and I'm the last person to tell you not to get a vaccine. But we have a problem here that the government can fix today and has decided because of political science and ideology not to.
Melissa Landsman is the Member of Parliament for Thornhill in the House of Commons, and she is a Conservative. Nothing happened with your motion, of course.
Well, my motion got voted down very promptly at the first opportunity that we got to vote on it yesterday. But we're going to see increased pressures from our airports and from our airlines and from our passengers who know that the government can do something to fix this problem. And the very fact that they haven't, nor have they shown any data that is different in Canada than everywhere else in the world, I think they expect an answer from this government, and the pressures continues.
Okay, if I were to get on a plane at Pearson today to fly to Winnipeg, do I have to be vaccinated?
You have to be vaccinated, and we are one of the only countries that requires that to date. Now, I think China requires it, and I think North Korea requires it, but I don't think that's very good company to be in.
All right, but yet if I go, as I'm probably going to do tonight, to see the Blue Jays play the White Sox, I don't have to be vaccinated, and I'll be in a louder, more expectorating, to sort of make up a term, crowd. In other words, people yelling and screaming and singing and all of that, and people in an airplane just sit quietly.
That's exactly right. And every restaurant, and frankly, we've dropped restrictions across the provinces. We have now provinces dropping some of their mandates to work in places like long-term care homes and healthcare, because we've got a labor crisis. And we've got people to fill those jobs. And we know that this virus has changed, and you can get infected whether you are vaccinated or not. So it's time to do the right thing. And help us get our economy back on track, just like everyone else has in the world.
Speaking of the baseball game, the White Sox are not bringing two of their players. They can't come into Canada because they're not vaccinated. Melissa Landsman, should we stop that as well?
Look, the government has had this policy in place. I think that we need to move on from the restrictive measures of COVID, understanding, of course, that vaccination is the key to getting out of this. But at some point, something's got to give, and we've got to move on with our lives.
All right, but could we keep that restriction in place till we're done playing the Yankees?
Well, I'm a baseball fan like you are, and I'd like to see nothing more than the Yankees not have their best players here.
Okay. Well, I think that they probably are bringing the best players, and I'm being a little facetious. But I also understand, I was complaining about the fact that if I want to fly into the United States, I have to have a test. If I want to drive in, I don't. But those are American restrictions, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're all very arbitrary, and we've heard that the Americans are looking at ways to help this. Look, this hurts us on our side a whole lot more. I spent some time in Niagara Falls, and it's a bit of a ghost town, and we're having issues certainly at our border with things like the ArriveCan app, which you've probably talked about. Yep. People not being able to do it. People who don't have smartphones. We are only hurting ourselves with these restrictions. The entire world has moved on, and it's time that Canada follows suit.
You can have a smartphone and have trouble with the ArriveCan app. We've had several of those instances just within the last few weeks in my family, my wife once coming back and both of us once coming back. I will say this, though, Melissa, I think it's important to say this. In both those cases where we had trouble with the ArriveCan app, who we didn't have trouble with were the Canadian border guards. They were very nice and they were very helpful. That isn't always the case. There's a capriciousness to it. It can depend on the mood of the guard you run into, I think, unfortunately. But for the most part, we ran into terrific people. But what you're saying, I think, Melissa, is we shouldn't be worrying about any of this anymore anyway. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on like all of the other countries. Like you can have a smart phone, but what we're advocating here is a smart government that makes smart solutions for Canadians to get back on track, get our tourism sector back to where it was, and to get our economy rolling just like everyone else in the world.
So what are you being told now by the government? Are they giving you a reason?
Well, there hasn't been any reasons. We've continuously asked for that data. They haven't been able to produce it. And my biggest question, Jerry, is why is the data here in Canada different than the data everyone else? If this is a government that continues to rely on the quote unquote science, then they have a responsibility to show Canadians that science. Otherwise, it's secret political science.